lovely balanced flavour, and it's actually one that's not too hot, so a very easy curry mix to use. I'm also going to fry up a little bit of panchphora, and that's a lovely seed spice blend that gives curries a full-bodied flavour. In addition to that, I'm going to fry up some onions, I'm going to use tomato paste, I'm going to use whole peeled tomatoes, I'm going to use a squeeze of lemon juice for tanginess, and some of the other spices I'm using are fenugreek leaves. I'm going to add a few extra long chillies because I like my curries just a little bit warmer, so a few long chillies will go very well. Going to add some lovely fresh curry leaves. They give a beautiful aroma. Now, curry leaves are not what curry's made from. They're called curry leaves because they're used in curries in the same way that Europeans would add a bay leaf to a stew or casserole. The Indians will add a curry leaf to a curry. So it's part of the flavour, but it's not what makes a taste of curry. I'm also going to use some garam masala, a wonderful spice blend. The word garam simply means spices, and the word masala means mix. So garam masala is a spice mix, but it is a very special spice mix that people know quite well. And instead of salt, I'm going to use a little bit of chaat masala. And chaat masala is a blend of salt and spices that also gives a lovely flavour profile that complements something like a curry very well. Start off with a good iron pot, because this is something we're going to start off with on the top of the stove, and then we're going to put the lid on, give it a long slow cook in the oven. So this is how we make Herbie's Saturday curry. One of the things I like to be sure of when I'm making a curry is to use a good cast iron pot that I can start with on the top of the stove and then put the lid on and put it in the oven for its long slow cook. Now, the way to start making a curry is to dry roast the curry spices, and we simply do that by heating the pot on the top of the stove, and with a completely dry pot, no oil in it at all, you put the curry spices in. Put them into the pot and stir them around. You need to be fairly careful that you don't burn them, because if you burn the spices, they will become quite bitter and the flavour profile won't be at all pleasing. As you're stirring them around, you'll notice that the fumes will start to come off and you'll see the colour darken a little bit. Once they've got to that stage, they are sufficiently roasted to just give a more full-bodied flavour, because this is a beef curry, and for a beef curry we like a roasted full-bodied taste in the actual curry itself. The next step in the process is to then add some oil, and I use olive oil. Some people prefer to use mustard oil, other people use ghee, but I find olive oil works very well. And stir that around, making the spices into a paste with the oil. And it's a good example as to why you don't need to buy curry pastes. You can make your own. It's that easy. We've just made a curry paste. The next step in the process is to add some panchphora. Panchphora is a blend of seed spices, and they are different spices that complement the flavour of curries very well and help to give a little bit more texture and body, and also make the curry look a little bit more interesting with the various seeds around there. We fry up and stir that around. Then the next thing we add are the onions, and we put in some chopped onion because onions again complement curry very well, but be careful not to overcook the onions. When you're doing onions in a dish like this, you don't want to caramelise them because that will be the wrong kind of flavour profile. You want to still have that lovely fresh onion flavour. So after they start to become a little bit clear, then we add the curry leaves. Curry leaves are not actually what gives curry its flavour. Curry leaves are used in Indian cooking in a similar way to the way Europeans use bay leaves in, say, stews and casseroles. So they're called curry leaves because they enhance the flavour of a curry. Then stir that all around with the curry leaves as well. You're starting to get rather an interesting looking concoction now, and the next important thing is to add the meat. Now, a little tip for making a curry that tastes really beautiful is to only add the meat a few cubes at a time. Only put in 4 or 5 chunks. I've used gravy beef because a more economical, lower grade of beef makes a much better curry, and it will tenderise a lot better than a high quality steak, for instance. I then put these in a few pieces at a time and stir them around so they brown nicely. What you're wanting to achieve is an even coating of the spices and onion all over the pieces of meat. You want to seal them, and so you just keep putting in a few at a time until they're all nicely browned and sealed. When you've got to that stage, the pot might be starting to look a little bit on the dry side, and you might get a little bit nervous and think, my God, I'm going to end up with a bit of a mess here. All that stuff's starting to stick to the bottom of the pot, and how am I going to clean it later? And a lot of people at that stage add extra oil. Of course, what they end up with then is a really oily curry, which we don't really want too much of. The secret is to just add a little water. So we pour some water in, and that water will help to stop those spices from sticking to the bottom. Don't put too much in because you don't want it getting all stewy and sort of boiled, but you just want to stop that sticking happening. Keep stirring that around, adding a little bit more water if you need to, and adjust the heat a little bit so things don't get too vigorous. If it's looking very active, then just cut the heat down a little bit until it's looking a little bit tamer. When you've got to that stage, you can then add some tomatoes. Tomatoes go very well in curries, and being a bit of a lazy cook, I always put in a can of whole peeled tomatoes, and I just put those in and chop them up. Gives really great flavour. And then I usually also put in a bit of tomato paste, and once again you can do that depending upon your own taste preference, but a bit of tomato paste complements the curry well and does give a beautiful flavour. After we've done that, we'll sprinkle in a little bit of garlic, because I like to use just a little bit of dried garlic because the flavour's nice and pungent, goes very well with the curry. I also add some fenugreek leaves. Fenugreek leaves are a great way to get that fenugreek flavour, which is very typical of fenugreek seed, but fenugreek leaves are not bitter the way fenugreek seeds are. And some people find that bitterness of fenugreek seeds is just a little bit much even in a curry. So the fenugreek leaves are a good flavour, a little bit beany, and a flavour that complements the curry leaves extremely well. Next I put in some chaat masala. Now this is the stage where you would put the salt in, so you know, the old salt to taste. I put in chaat masala because it is a blend of salt and also various spices, used a lot in Indian cooking as a substitute for salt, or along in a recipe that would call for salt, they'll use chaat masala because you get the saltiness and the lovely spicy flavours. The last step in the process is to add some garam masala. Now, the garam masala you don't mix through, so let it come off the boil and sprinkle a couple of teaspoons of garam masala over the top, over the surface of the curry, and just leave it. Don't stir it through. And when you've done that, you're ready to put the lid on the top of the pot, and then the oven that preferably you've preheated to 100 degrees C, you then pop the pot into the oven. We leave that for 2 hours, and then we come back, turn off the heat, take it out of the oven, let it cool, and if after experiencing all those beautiful aromas, you are strong enough to be able to put it in the fridge overnight rather than eating it that night, and then heat it up the next day, you'll find that after that overnight period, the spices will have amalgamated even better, and you will have a really perfect curry.